Hey friend, this is Brandon here with This Is Tech Today, and many of you had some questions for me in my previous video, which if you haven't checked it out yet is over here, and you wanted to know what was the difference between the brand new 58mm lens from Moment and the 60mm lens from Moment. So let's go check it out. Alright, so one thing that I'm noticing is that on the 60mm, it's obviously closer, but it also has a bit of a vignette, and it has a little bit of chromatic aberration around the edges. So keep in mind that the 58mm fixes a ton of that. This is a GH5S, so who knows if this autofocus is working. But one thing about the lenses, the 58mm and the 60mm, is that the 60 is actually kind of small, and then the 58mm is quite big. The 60mm was intended for things like the iPhone 5 that had a much smaller lens. So this is to compensate for the larger sensors that are on flagship devices now. And this thing is really heavy. If you chucked at them, they'd lose. All right, so we're using the 58mm here. It's interesting because the photo is much brighter than in real life. See, that punched in a lot more, but I can see how fuzzy it is in the corners. So one of the benefits of having something like a 58mm or 60mm is bokeh, the blur. You can emphasize depth, which is really cool. For those of you wondering about video quality, this is what it looks like on the 58mm. This is without it. Here's with the 60mm. So you can already see on the left side and the edges that there's just a lot of fuzziness going on. So even the sign, see how it gets really fuzzy on the edges, but it gets sharp in the middle? So when we go back to this 58mm, it's a lot sharper. So we're back in my studio, and I want to show you some more scientific controlled environment photos to give you an idea of that chromatic aberration that I'm talking about, like the fuzzies on the edges, as well as tell you about this video sponsor, Storyblocks. We'll probably start with the 60mm. So if you didn't know, the intro had a lot of sound effects in it, and it helped give that city landscape sound to it. That's really helpful if you're making any of your own videos or you have a podcast and you need to have some sound effects to add some sort of immersion in the content you're making. Okay, let's check out the 60mm. I can already see that there will be a little bit of a fuzzy kind of blue haze to the edges of this X-Rite logo on the left. And then it's really sharp in the middle. And then let me take it off in the same spot. We'll put on the 58mm. And you can see how the zoom is different. And just so you know, with Storyblocks, you have unlimited downloads, it's royalty free, you can use it anywhere. Storyblocks has an ever-expanding catalog of studio quality sound effects, audio clips, music, loops. It's a great tool, especially if you're a creative, which I imagine you are. So the logo on this focus card is already way better. There's not any of this hazy look to the side. And you can also see that we're zoomed out a little bit more. Now, one thing to keep in mind, even though there's vignetting and chromatic aberration on the 60mm, that might not be a bad thing. Patrick Tomaso, one of my fellow creative friends, created a film recently for the Moment Invitational, and he intentionally used this lens to give it a certain vibe or feel. And by the way, his short film had incredible sound design on it, and it's because he used a lot of sound effects. So if you want to sign up for Storyblocks Audio, there's a link down below in the description. And I just want to say thank you so much to Storyblocks for sponsoring this video and supporting my ability to make videos like this for you. So go sign up for that. And of course, the Moment telephoto lenses help you zoom in closer to your subject. Holy crap. So I've heard that some people think that the lenses are too expensive, but keep in mind, lenses are one of the most important investments that you can make. When you purchase a camera like the one that I'm using right now, the GH5S, the glass is really important. I can always replace the body, but the lens will retain its value and I can move it to a different camera. And it's the same thing with the phones. Just get a different case. So I definitely think this is a worthy upgrade. If you don't already have a lens from Moment for portrait shots or for telephoto shots, you should definitely get the new 58mm. If you want to get your hands on it, there are links down below in the description. And if you have the 60mm, it's definitely worth upgrading that too. So what are your thoughts and your observations of the photos? Go ahead and leave some comments down below. Oh, back at the studio again. If you're wondering what happened here, this car accident, they just ran into a sign. It seemed like they were okay. I hope that I wasn't the one who caused the accident because I was squatting in the middle of a road. Holy crap. On an island. I was in the island. It's okay. It's legal. I'm sure that's legal. Yeah. Anyways, thanks for watching This Is Tech Today. Until next time.